Amazing how that works. Imagine that. Bud Light decides to hire a transgender for its marketing purposes, and what do you know? The stock price plunges. You're not going to believe where shares of InBev are right now. That's the parent company of Bud Light. We're going to talk about that. Elon Musk said, "You're lying. You just lied. You got to see this clip."
I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
And the BBC reporter really couldn't explain just exactly what hate speech was on Twitter. He claimed he'd seen an increase in it. Well, Elon Musk said, "You're lying. You just lied. You got to see this clip." We're getting into all of it. It is so good to have you here. I am Trish Regan. Portions of the show are brought to you by LegacyPMInvestments.com. Go to LegacyPMInvestments.com for more. All right, Bud Light, what were you thinking? You're paying the price. You're paying the price because last I checked, we're still a capitalist country. Last I checked, you still needed to actually have some sales in order to be in business. Well, Bud Light sales, they're plunging. We're getting anecdotal evidence of this all over the country. Lots of bars are saying they've seen a massive drop. Even bars in New York City, they've seen a huge drop in Bud Light sales. Vendors are getting really nervous. What is this company thinking? I'll tell you what they were thinking. They had a hoity-toity Harvard grad who, by the way, did her own share of frat-style behavior. Daily Caller actually uncovered some pictures from her college days there at one of those drinking clubs. Rolling Rock, I think, was in the picture, which I do believe is an InBev beer. Not Bud Light. But, they don't drink apparently that at Harvard. Anyway, look, nothing against Harvard, by the way. Although I will say I can probably count on one hand the normal people I've known that have gone to Harvard. And I say that as a Columbia grad. Anyway, this Harvard woman running marketing at Bud Light thinks that she's going to appeal to her customers by having a transgender market their beer. I mean, it's incomprehensible in some way, but it shows you a lot about where we are as a society. When the Harvard types think that they can outthink and outmaneuver mainstream America. There's a political message in here too, because this is what the Democrats got so wrong in 2016. They thought their fancy schmancy Hillary Clinton with her fancy schmancy talk would actually do better than Donald Trump, who was kind of a straight shooter and told it like it was, and it still does, tells it like it is, perhaps to his own detriment at times. But this is how they think they can change the world. I will tell you, it is not a good path, economically speaking, for their businesses, or economically speaking, culturally speaking, for our country. First, in terms of Bud Light, take a look at the stock price. I want you to see this. Like, just over the last 5 days, the last 5 days, the company's lost about 5.5%. That is a lot because you know what? The market hasn't been down 5.5%. And if I look at some of its competitors, hey, Molson Coors, what do you know? It's trading up by nearly that amount. In fact, in today's session, Molson Coors up nearly 0.5%. Bud stock, BUD, by the way, is the ticker. It's AB InBev that owns it. They own a zillion beers, including things like Corona, Corona Light, Stella Artois, Rolling Rock. I mean, they got a bunch of them. Their stock is way down because it's very clear they're going to have way more problems than they ever anticipated selling this very poor tasting. Sorry if anyone liked it. I bet you don't now. Poor tasting beer. From a societal perspective, I think what we just saw at Bud Light and at Nike and what we're seeing happening with all these operations that are being performed on young kids all over the country, I think it tells you something about where we are in our overall trajectory as a country, as a hegemonic power. I've said this before. If you think about it, it can kind of spell the end. We got kind of a problem going on. I mean, not to mention what they're doing to women in the process. When you got a guy that can dress up and pretend he's more feminine than anyone ever dreamed of, it's effectively making a mockery of women. And we women, we don't appreciate it. And guess what? We control household spending. Women are the CFOs of their families. We're the ones that spend the money. So guess what? You need us on your side. And we're not buying AB InBev products or Bud Light products. And we're definitely not buying any Nike sports bras or Nike shoes for our kids. Thank you very much. The stock price hasn't quite yet been affected, Nike stock price, but I'm telling you, this movement, as they say, has legs. And because women, we do the bulk of the household spending, we don't have to buy the Nike sneakers for our kids. Now, do we? I do get a little bit happy when I start to see investors vote with their feet. Speaking of which, I was just talking to an investor friend of mine who was kind of outraged by the whole thing himself. And guess what? He just bought some shares of Molson Coors, which were up 0.41%. I'm going to diversify into another beer, both at home and in my stock portfolio. Again, none of this is financial advice. I always have to qualify. None of this is financial advice, but I just thought it was a cute anecdote that I wanted to share with you. If you're looking to hold another beer company, Molson Coors has yet to come out with a transgender ad. Speaking of investing, we did get the CPI report out today. Look, we still got inflation. We got inflation that grew 5%. Everybody's like, woohoo, it's less than it was. But you know what? It's still up 5%. You know, our advertiser on the show is Legacy Precious Metals. If you're somebody that's worried about inflation and you're looking to gold potentially as a way to help protect yourself, Legacy Precious Metals wants you to know that they are there, ready, willing, and able. They've got this whole new format where you can buy gold right online, directly on their website. You can buy and sell silver too. Gold and silver, all for sale directly online or by calling them 1-866-589-0560 or by going to legacypminvestments.com. Again, legacypminvestments.com. Do I have a clip for you? This one's pretty entertaining because it's Elon Musk calling out a BBC reporter who thinks he knows better. He knows all about Twitter's feed. It's just full of hate these days, according to this particular reporter. Well, Elon's not having it. Take a listen.
To describe a hateful thing.
Yeah, I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
Ouch.
I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lie.
I think if you're going to go into an interview like that, you kind of want to have your facts straight. BBC's coming out now and saying, oh, it was so hasty. It was arranged last minute. Yeah, that's their excuse, I guess, for their reporter not being properly prepared when you confront someone about the hate speech on Twitter. I'll tell you, you want to see hate speech, guys? You want to see it? You know where you need to go. You need to go take a little trip over to TikTok. Actually, I don't even want you to go over to TikTok. If you're on TikTok, okay, so be it. You know what I'm talking about. But TikTok has sort of the worst of humanity on it. I have a whole theory about China being behind it because they want this. Think about what's happening in our society right now in terms of the feminization of men. Think about how our military is now preoccupied with making sure that they're good with everybody's feelings, that there's no racial tension, which, by the way, there really wasn't ever any racial, maybe way back, but one of the best examples of a fully integrated community is the military. It's like they want to make up problems where there are none. So there's this feminization in society of men. They want to label masculinity as something really, really bad. It is a war on men. And consequently, it's a war on women because we're married to men. We give birth to male children. And part of making sure our society continues is having two different genders. You can't not have genders. I'm sorry. They've been able to do a lot with science. Nobody's been able to grow, thank goodness, a baby in an artificial womb or put a uterus into a man and say, okay, here, go for it, grow a baby. Now, that's something that's still pretty special just to us ladies. Thank you very much. But you need to think about this in context of what's going on with China right now. Because they got tons of men and they got like uber masculinity there. Why? They don't have a lot of women as a result of their one-child policy that was in place for so many years. And you've heard this horror stories. And, I remember as a kid, families adopting these young girls from China because otherwise they wouldn't have made it. I mean, it's horrible to talk about. And many, many young baby girls lost their lives. The thinking was that the boy would help take the family forward. So now they're left with all these men. And people have said that there is a danger China becomes extremely aggressive because you don't have any females or enough females to kind of temper. You're not going to have as many mothers and sisters and wives. So where does that society go? Well, simultaneously ours is, jumping over the cliff with wigs and fake eyelashes and high heels. That's what our men are doing that. All right, we got a lot going on. The former president, this whole arrest thing is really ticking a lot of people off. When you look at the polls, and there's a new one out today showing he's way ahead in South Carolina, like by a country mile, way ahead of Ron DeSantis, ahead of Nikki Haley, who's actually relatively close to DeSantis, way ahead of Pence, who's coming in kind of in the bottom of the heap here with about 5% of the support. Anyway, this new poll shows Donald Trump at least 21 points ahead of Ron DeSantis. Now, again, it's still early in the game, but it shows you that a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives are flocking to him amid this entire controversy. So he's getting a lot more support. Right now, I think if the election were held today, he would be. I think he still will be in 2024. Like I said, a lot can happen. But if the election were held today, Donald Trump would be the nominee from the Republican Party. Alvin, Bragg, the DA in New York City, is trying to effectively help him get there, I guess, by, rallying the troops, so to speak, because of this kind of phony arrest. We kept thinking we'll get something in the indictment. Maybe there'll be something else there, but no, there wasn't. So now he's taking a misdemeanor and he's trying to get a federal charge out of it, even though everybody at the federal level looked at this already and said, okay, there's no there. Well, Jim Jordan, Congressman Jordan, he's saying, all right, I want to know just exactly what you're seeing because you think this is a federal case. If it's a federal case, then what you got? Let me see your notes. Let me see what this is, because now you're talking about something at a federal level that would really rise to the occasion of having Congress involved, or at least some federal oversight. And the DA's flipping out. He doesn't want to turn over anything. Jim Jordan sued him, said you have to turn it over. And Alvin Bragg went back and sued Jim Jordan and said, no, I'm not going to do this. One of the things that Jim Jordan wants to do is have an employee that used to work for Bragg, who didn't really hold him in the highest esteem. He wants him to testify before Congress. And Bragg is like, no. And so now he's suing Jim Jordan. Anyway, joining us right now on the program, so glad to have with me, we have Attorney General Ken Paxton from Texas, where they're working hard to do a lot of things that the Democrats probably don't like. But Ken Paxton, I credit you guys for taking a lot of chances here and taking on a lot, because you guys have a lot on your plate in that great state.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on. And certainly true. We do have a lot to deal with, and we're a big state, and we have a lot of issues, and a lot of them are caused by the federal government, unfortunately.
I want to get to some of the specifics on that. But before we do, your reaction, your legal reaction to what just happened to the former president of the United States.
It's incredible. It's not surprising to me. I mean, I've seen this happen to a lot of other people, a lot of other conservatives. It's the judicial system, particularly the criminal justice system, is no longer about justice. It's about taking down your political enemies and tainting them, making them spend money, ruining their lives. And that's exactly what I see happening here. This guy ran on a promise: I will find something. And this is exactly how the Soviet Union used to do it. There was a head of their CIA or whatever their secret police was, said, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." That's the status of American civil justice these days, and especially in many of our large cities. And we are in trouble if we allow this to continue to occur.
Your thoughts on Jim Jordan now getting sued by Alvin Bragg, the DA in New York. Of course, Jim Jordan wanted some transparency into this investigation. He was requiring that they turn over a lot of documents so that he could understand where they were coming up with this case. And he even was subpoenaing somebody who wasn't necessarily one of Bragg's biggest fans, a guy who used to work for him in terms of some of his legal decisions. He wanted to hear from him directly. Bragg's now suing, saying, no, I don't want him. I mean, come on. It feels like total bedlam, a total circus, but your impression of the Jordan Bragg situation now?
Not surprised Bragg doesn't want transparency. Not surprised he doesn't want anybody meddling in his supposed case. Because there's a lot of, we all know there's a lot of problems with this case, and he hasn't been open about even what the actual crimes are. So, supposedly it related to federal funds, and that obviously is the purview of our Congress and our federal government. So,
absolutely. So then, therefore, they would have jurisdiction, right? I mean, one has to sort of debate the DA going in there and looking at the federal stuff, but I would think Congress would have the right to say, wait a second, if this is a federal issue, we need to be involved.
I think he made it a federal issue. I mean, he wasn't basing his underlying crime, we don't think, on state law. That he was suggesting that it was election law related, which, this is a federal issue. So that he actually opened the door for Congress to come and look at it, and maybe he wasn't telling the truth, and he shouldn't have said that. But now he's created the problem.
Turning to the border, you guys have just felt the brunt of it in so many enormous ways, both from a crime perspective, also just a financial perspective, right? Because you've got to somehow deal with all these displaced kids and their families and individuals coming in. It's remarkable to me that in the United States of America, we don't have a federal government that's willing to take this on in a bigger way. It's all being put effectively on the back of Texas. And you guys get caught having to spend all the money. But by the way, not only just spend the money, but you're not even allowed to enforce, as I understand it, the border rules as you guys might want.
So it's even, I think, worse than how you characterize it. This isn't just like they're just not doing their job. This is like them affirmatively saying, hey, cartels, we want you to bring as many illegals here as possible. We will accept them. You don't even have to run. Just turn them over to us, say the magic word asylum. We'll send them around the country. You can do all your human trafficking. The border will be pretty open for drugs. A lot of kids are going to die. We want you to get all the drug. I mean, basically, they're in partnership with the cartels, telling them, if you can bring the people here, in other words, you can make a lot of money. The more you bring, the more we'll take. There's no limit.
It seems to me you want to do everything you can to prevent the illegal immigration and encourage the legal stuff.
So our elected representatives put together laws, and they've been doing it since the founding of our country, that the president has to follow. And it's not his job to come in and say, well, I don't like the laws passed by the elected representatives. I'm not following those laws. I don't have to. I'm no different than whatever Venezuela or Cuba. I can do what I want. That's kind of what he said. He said, I don't follow laws because I don't like them. And I'm not going to do that. That's not our constitutional republic. We don't have a constitutional republic. Our elected leaders don't matter if the president can just overrule them. And that's what he's doing with immigration. He's saying, I don't like the system. We don't let enough people in. We should let millions of people in. They should be from the countries that I pick, and they can have a criminal background. As a matter of fact, I want them here if they have criminal backgrounds. He's literally fighting us over this. He wants the criminals. So
come on.
It's true. We are in a lawsuit where we are suing him because he is allowing criminals in, and we're saying, at the very least, break every other law, but don't break that one. Do not bring the criminals. So all these countries are sending their criminals, and Joe Biden saying, send more. Keep them coming.
What do you think? I mean, not to be too conspiratorial here, but what do you think it's really about? I mean, why would any sane person want criminals in the country? Why would they want drugs in the country? Let's just, forget politics for a second, or maybe it is politics that's dictating this, but why would any sane person?
Well, you're also talking about terrorism too, the potential of terrorism, cells being.
Sure.
I can't think of any good reason like, oh, I love America or I love the people of America. This isn't about that. There's no good thing coming out of this for America. This has another agenda. And I think it's to get votes in the long run. I think it's to get as many problems in the state of Texas, state of Florida, any of the Republican states. We have to pay for it. It hurts our economy. It hurts our criminal justice system. It creates more, crimes and damage. And unfortunately, it's hard to say that they don't want that because they're bringing it in. I think they want damage to Republican states.
Anyway, ESG. This is a biggie for you. It's a biggie for me. I look at what's going on. I mean, Bud Light, give me a break. I'm sorry. Like last I checked, First of all, the beer is terrible, but most folks that drink it are probably the fratty boys that they didn't like, right? So they wanted to get away from fratty boys and they wanted to diversify their brand, but they also wanted something else. They wanted a strong ESG score over at AB InBev because there's a company, which you know well, and I know that you've written them letters, Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock. BlackRock controls so much of the investing world. I mean, they have nearly the size of US GDP under management, biggest asset management company in the world. And they came up with this idea that you had to have a good ESG score, environmental social governance, in order for big pension funds, including probably the one that's in your state there, to invest in your company. So now, instead of actually saying, maybe we want to make money, companies are like, okay, what can we do to up our ESG score and be more politically correct and improve our carbon footprint, et cetera? Well, that's a problem for a whole lot of reasons, including our capitalist foundation, but it's a problem in Texas because you got a lot of oil companies there. So what do you guys do about that? I have a lot to say on this. Forgive me. You will too. But I really think the answer to this is when states like Texas, and Florida's doing the same, I believe Kansas did too, they start to push back and say, you know what? We're not going to invest in BlackRock. Our pension funds are not going to invest with BlackRock if BlackRock won't even put money into big energy companies right here in the state of Texas that would employ people and benefit our state.
Yeah, so there's definitely more we can do in Texas. Our legislature could pass something very similar to what Florida did. I think there's efforts to have that happen in this session. We'll see what happens. But we do have a provision that was passed last session where if a company, bank wants to issue public debt and they have these discriminatory policies based on being anti-oil and gas or energy production, they can't issue debt in Texas, and it will cost them business in Texas. And so I think that's the right step, because what these people are doing is they are basically causing the average American to have less money to retire on, because their investments now aren't about making money. They're about satisfying a political agenda. And unfortunately, there's 152 million people, Americans, I think, in the in ERISA programs, where the Biden administration is trying to push this ESG stuff. That means that some people can't retire. Everybody's going to have less money, and they're all going to be worse off, all because they want to punish oil and gas and other industries that they don't find favorable in their personal views.
So what's your biggest concern right now for Texas? Because I know everybody wants to move there. Everybody's like leaving California and they're going to Texas or they're going to Florida. You have been historically a very red, very dependably red state. Is any of that at risk?
Yes, I think we get two major problems. Our property taxes are way too high, and two, this district attorney thing could sabotage our ability to have fair elections. And if we lose that ability, which is going to happen, I think, relatively soon, unless they reauthorize my ability to go after voter fraud, we're going to lose elections, because in these large counties, they can do whatever they want, because guess what? Jose Garcia is not going to prosecute it. And everybody's going to know that you can commit as much voter fraud in Texas as you want. And we're going to lose elections with voter fraud.
Do you have a state law requiring identification when you go to vote?
We do. But the problem is, if you know you can cheat with mail-in ballots, which are a pretty easy way to do it, then there's nothing we can do to stop it. If I had the ability to prosecute voter fraud, it's the legislature passed it in 1951. The Court of Criminal Appeals, which is our highest court on criminal matters, struck that down 2 years ago, saying that I, as the Attorney General, because of separation of powers, did not have the ability to go to court.
Wow.
Now, that's ridiculous. That means every Attorney General is violating the Constitution.
So it can be like a total free-for-all.
That's what they designed here. They knew that if they took my ability out, that it was a free-for-all for voter fraud. And that was our Republican Court of Criminal Appeals. Now, nobody really knows who they are. We're going to find out about who they are, but they're not your standard Republican, that's for sure.
So how do you get to the bottom of that?
So the legislature is trying to repass the law, and we've got these members of the court. There's 9 of them. They're up every 6 years, okay. 3 of them at a time. There was only one good vote on that, a guy named Kevin Urey. The other 8 need to go. So the next election, we've got to be informed, because nobody was informed about who was on the court.
Wow. No, I mean, it's incredible. It's so much coming at you. As I said in the beginning, it's a big state and a lot of things, can kind of slip by. And unless you're all over it, you run certain risks. So keep it up. Attorney General Ken Paxton joining us. So good to see you, sir. I hope to talk again soon.
Hey, thank you. Have a great day.
My thanks again to Ken. So look what I have here. Look what I have here. I'm going to put it on. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple iTunes, you're going to have to check this out on Rumble or on YouTube, or just go to the site itself, trishreganshow.com or trishregan.store. I am wearing one of my wonderful Live Free or Die hats. I call it my Live Free or Die gear. Some of the hats actually say Live Free or Die on them. And I just want to give you some background on that. You know, I grew up in the great state of New Hampshire where it's on every single license plate. So from like the time I could barely read at 4 or 5 years old, I would see Live Free or Die and right at kind of eye level, right? It is all I could see, little kid. And you'd walk through a parking lot, live free or die, live free or die, live free or die. So it gets kind of just embedded in your head, live free or die. And I have kind of always just sort of led my life that way. I mean, I really think freedom is the one thing that we have and the one thing we must guard and the one thing we must always cherish. And that's a big wind up to tell you about the store, trishregan.store, where you can get these great hats. I'm wearing one right now that has the American flag. It's an embroidery that I actually personally designed myself. And it's there at trishregan.store. We have a lot of other stuff as well. Some Live Free or Die mugs, Live Free or Die t-shirts, Live Free or Die beach towels. You can't beat that, right? Anyway, wanted to mention that to you. And before I left you for the day, I did also want to just give you another picture of this great little dog, this wonderful dog that is in great health right now. And I attribute a lot of that to Dr. Dennis Black and his naturopathic approach to health. He's a naturopathic doctor, but he created something called Rough Greens. And when my dog was suffering from allergies, so many of you weighed in, you gave me some good advice, you suggested what I might do. And a lot of it, and you guys told me this, came down to diet. And I agree with you. So I started doing the elimination diet, trying to figure out what was really a problem. I discovered chicken was not for him. So we eliminated chicken. But the other thing I did in terms of making sure that he had the proper nutrition every day was I made sure that I got him this vitamin supplement created by Rough Greens. You can get this too. It's free. You can get a Jumpstart trial bag delivered free to your house. You just have to pay for shipping in a couple days' time. Go to roughgreens.com/Trish. My name, again, it's roughgreens/Trish. And let me know what your dog thinks. Let me know what you think of Fluffy and the hats. Great to have you here, everyone. We got lots more to talk about. You know, we're going to do a personal finance Friday thing coming up because this market has been so volatile and so crazy. I thought it would be really worthwhile to get an expert on the show to talk you through the basics. How do you invest right now? Look, everybody has a different approach. Everybody has different needs. But my guest, she's tremendous. She has kind of she happens to be Dave Ramsey's daughter too. So, you know, not to give it all away. But anyway, she grew up around this stuff. Stay tuned for that. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.